what is some of the advice that you're providing to folks who are looking to fund these accessibility efforts to make sure that they get the right tools or the right kind of vendor support, or to make sure that the entire burden of accessibility from the last, 3 decades isn't falling and resting on the shoulders of just the folks who are in the seat right now trying to solve this problem? What are some of the, pieces of advice that you would give them, Amy, when they're trying to fund their efforts?
So what I would say is create a plan for the entirety of your accessibility journey. Figure out which pieces of those plan, which pieces of figure out which pieces of that plan can be high impact without being really, really stringent on your budget. So maybe that looks like purchasing licenses to start remediating your own documents rather than having your documents remediated. Maybe it looks like automated remediation versus doing manual remediation. So invest wisely with the budget that you do have and get creative with where you could potentially find other funding.
I think back to one of my earliest experiences when I started working in accessibility, and that was in the education space. And I started working in accessibility at the University of Montana following an Office of Civil Rights investigation that they received. And they essentially needed to build out an accessibility program as a result of that. And we got 15 minutes with the university president and his cabinet at one of their cabinet meetings. And we only had 15 minutes to use. And so the number one thing that we went in there wanting to do was to show the impact, right? To actually demonstrate here's what it's like to use an inaccessible document, right? Here's what that inaccessible document sounds like to somebody like myself who is blind and uses screen reading software, right? So they understand why. What does this actually mean? What is the practical impact? Because if you have two versions of the same document, one of them is an accessible tagged PDF and the other is an inaccessible untagged PDF, visually those are pretty much indistinguishable, right? And so you have to understand why this actually matters. It helps create that buy-in. And so I learned very quickly to always start off by explaining what accessibility is, why it's important, lean into the power of that demonstration. Once you've done that, then you can bring in the data, right? So you can say, this is what it is like to encounter an inaccessible, untagged PDF. Now, guess what? We ran a scan of the university's website, and what we found is that 96% of the PDFs on our website are untagged, right? It helps connect the dots to make that case to why it's important.